speaker, okay, Dr. Muhammad Noor Azmin bin Akbarruddin. Welcome, Doctor. Okay,
And
so
thank you.
Doctor will share his knowledge about the research paradigm for today's session. Okay, before we start, I would like um to give a simple guideline, okay, for you. Please make sure that you are on mute during the presentation. So make sure that your speaker, your microphone on is off. Okay. The Q&A session will be held after the presentation. So if you have any questions, just write it down in the chat box, or you may raise your hand virtually. I hope that all of you remain till the end, because the link of the attendance will be given after this session. Okay. Before proceed to the next agenda, I would like to introduce okay. We would like to have our group photo session first. Okay. So I would like everybody to switch on your camera first. Um, Puan Nadia, Puan Nadira, can you please help me to take a picture? Doctor, can you okay. Okay, ready? Fatisha? Fatisha, can you switch on your camera? Okay, everybody ready? Okay. Okay. Okay, ready? Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, once again. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, before we start, I would like to introduce our guest speaker for today. So, simple introduction about Dr. Muhammad Noor Azmin. Okay, Dr. Muhammad Noor Azmin Akbarruddin is a distinguished researcher and academically known for his contribution in the field of culinary and gastronomy management. Okay, and he holds a PhD in Hotel and Tourism Management from UITM, and has garnered a reputation for his research in the area, such as a food culture, ethnic restaurant, and so on. Okay, actually, he is a very active researcher. Okay, if I'm not mistaken, as of now, he has 4 grants that's still ongoing, yeah, Doctor?
Yeah.
Still ongoing. So I think he will have he very knowledgeable to share the knowledge on the research paradigm for today. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Dr. Azmin to join to share his knowledge on today's topic. So Dr. Azmin, the screen is yours.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you to the uh, MC of today, Puan Suryati Osman, for the very lovely introduction. Okay, so what we are going to do in this very evening. So the topic that has been given to me is about the exploring the research paradigm in hospitality. So basically what I'm going trying to do in this session is trying to go over some of the major research paradigm, as well as we are going to look at some of the philosophical foundation of the research paradigm and what is the research paradigm is all about. Okay, so that is the goal that we are going to do in this evening. So, yeah. So this is the session objective that I'm trying to fulfill in this evening. So, which is understanding the philosophical foundation of research. So, because even though the research paradigm is usually the thing that people usually just put at the back burners within the chapter 3 or the research methodology, but in actuality, research paradigm is actually what we call as an active component or an active element within the research itself, because it is ongoing from the start of your research journey until the end of the research journey. So because of that, it is very important to understand the philosophical foundation of the research paradigm itself. Then in this session also, we are going to identify different research paradigm. Basically, the most common paradigm that is associated with social science, as well as associated with the hospitality on tourism study. And also, we are going to be looking at selecting appropriate paradigm for research project. We are going to look at the sample or the example of uh, the research objective or research question that is aligned with the research paradigm itself. And we are going to apply paradigmatic knowledge to research design. So this is some of the goals that I'm going to set up to accomplish within this very brief webinar series. Okay. So first and foremost, so I'm going to talk about the concept of research paradigm. Paradigm also can be taught as a worldview, a worldview. So as we already know that everyone in their daily life is going to have some kind of opinion or some kind of view towards certain thing. And those view or belief is going to guide the decision making that he or she is going to be doing in their daily life. So it is the similar thing that happen when you choose certain research paradigm. Uh, so in that sense, the research paradigm is actually, it's like a mental framework that shape how the researcher as well as how the students that are doing the research is going to shape the understanding and interpretation of the thing that you are interacting within your research journey. I mean, you can think of it as a set of belief, assumption, and practices that influence how people view and think about certain topic. In this manner, since the scientific research and scientific method is popularized by the Westerners, such as Thomas Kuhn. Thomas Kuhn, one of the philosopher of science, has popularized the concept of the research paradigm. You can find his book if you want to. He has wrote a famous book called The Structure of Scientific Revolution. So in that book, he challenged that the idea that science just move forward in straight line. Instead, he said that Thomas Kuhn said that sometimes we get this revolutionary moment where we completely change how we think about things. It's like kind of like how people mindset about the earth being flat got totally flipped when we discovered that it was actually round. So when it comes to research, paradigm is like uh, a very important thing that cannot be overlooked, even though people do not think about it. But basically, if you choose a wrong paradigm, so the end result or the result of the research itself is not going to be aligned with what you have in mind. So in this sense, the paradigm is like a special lenses. It's like a lenses. It's like a spectacle in which the researcher wear that affect everything that they do, from how they ask the question to how they are going to choose something to study and making sense of what they find in their study. Uh, so this thing is, if you really careful think about it, this thing is very, very interesting because I mean, it gives a researcher a shared language and a way of thinking about things in their field. So, but here is the interesting part. This paradigm aren't set in stone. So this paradigm can totally change over time as we discover new thing or come up with new idea. You can think it's like how our understanding that keep evolving as we learn more and more and more. So within the scientific research, anything new that is going to be discovered in the future is going to be built upon the old belief. So those old belief is based on certain principle or certain paradigm that people believe that is true uh, during that time. So as people research and research, people are going to find new thing and new way to look at certain thing. Uh, for example, uh, I always said this in my class in regards to the how we view the universe. For example, the most famous theory that we know that we have heard so many times, for example, about the theory of gravity. So the theory of gravity. So, so the theory of gravity is put forward by Isaac Newton. So Isaac Newton, when he put forward the idea of there is something, there is some invisible forces that is acting from far away toward other thing within the very far away thing, like planet attracting moon, planet attracting star, and star attracting other planet. So when Isaac Newton proposed that there is some invisible thing that hold on to this thing together, so the other people or the other scientists within his era at first do not believe him. So his idea, his conjecture or his assertion that there are some invisible thing that hold together uh, that attracting us to the earth and attracting the moon to the earth and the sun attracting the solar system. So people do not believe him in the first place. But as time goes on, people start to realize based on observation and based on experimentation that what he says has some kind of merit. So over time, people start to accept the paradigm that there are the thing that what we call right now as a gravity. And as we move on, in 1915, Albert Einstein has put forward another new theory, which what we call the general theory of relativity. In those theory, he what he basically do is that he basically uprooted uprooted the existing theory of gravity that has been put forward by Isaac Newton. So when Albert Einstein put forward his theory of relativity in 1915, so basically he is supplanting or replacing the theory of universal gravitation with a new theory that explain in very radical way of what is gravity is all about. So that is, and after that, after uh, very much experimentation and very much theoretical part. So right now, people, especially scientists, has come to believe that the conjecture of gravity by Albert Einstein is more correct than the conjecture of gravitation that is put forward by Isaac Newton. So as you can see, right now, anything that has been done from launching rocket to outer space, from launching satellite to outer space, and many things. So those things is done with the view, with the new view that has been put forward by Albert Einstein, and no longer they are using the theory that has been put forward by Isaac Newton. So this is what research paradigm is all about. When you have a new thing, new way to look at things, so your worldview is going to change. And based on the worldview that you hold on uh, up to a certain point, you are going to view those things using those knowledge that you know. So it's like, so this paradigm is kind of like you are having a roadmap. So it's going to help the researcher to figure out what count as a valid knowledge in their field, and especially it's going to guide them to choosing the right method for their research. So basically, their philosophical foundation that helps them to stay consistent in how they approach their work and analyze their finding. So the importance of research paradigm. So why it is important to know about the research paradigm? You can think of the research paradigm as tools. So these tools, this research paradigm is going to help the researcher to figure out how to approach their work and make sense of what they are studying. You know how everyone has different ways of looking at things. So exactly what happens in research too. So this paradigm, you can think of it as a different pair of glasses that researcher can put on to see the world in different ways. So this means that uh, depending on the context of the study and depending on the nature of the study, the researcher can wear multiple or wear different research paradigm in each consecutive research that he or she is going to conduct. So meaning in one research is he is going to use a certain paradigm, and in another research he is going to use another paradigm. So this is basically context dependent on the research itself. So the important thing is also that by having a different a paradigm, a set of belief in which we look at things, so researchers with different perspective can share their ideas and challenge each other. This is going to lead to better understanding overall. So, for example, so some researcher might focus on studying, power dynamic in society. So the struggle in the society. So like who has influence and who doesn't. So others might be more interested in looking at numbers, statistic, and cause and effect relationship. And there are also those who really want to understand people's personal experience and story. And some researchers, based on their paradigm, especially working in indigenous community, can use their research to help address historical wrong and preserve cultural tradition. Um, Also, for example, when we are studying something like urban poverty, some researchers can combine hard data, like, for example, income level. They are going to combine the income level with personal story from community members. Or, for example, in education, they might mix test score with teacher interview to get a fuller picture. So I think it is very important, super important for students and researchers to get comfortable with these different approaches. So it's like the paradigm, you can think of it as having a toolkit. So when you have a toolkit, the more tools that you understand, the more tools that you have, so you are better equipped to tackle different research problem and spot the gap in current knowledge. But also, there are some, uh, the paradigm itself is up uh, to debate. So I mean that there are no one paradigm that can best explain the reality of the world. So this means that the researcher need to have some kind of open mind setting when they are using paradigm in producing their result, as well as in their interpretation and discussion of their result. Because when everyone has their own opinion based on their uh, chosen paradigm, so we just have different perspective of the same phenomena based on different paradigm. Okay, so now we are going to look at some of the uh, historical development of research paradigm. Okay, as you can see on the slide, uh, uh, the since the research paradigm is actually based on philosophical thinking, so philosophical thinking. So as you can see that the research paradigm is actually uh, has been originated from the ancient times, since the time of Plato as well as Aristotle. So if you study or have heard some kind of uh, story from philosophical reading, so Plato and Aristotle is one of the big name, big contributor toward the understanding or toward the development of the philosophical field. Uh, so in this example, uh, Plato and Aristotle is, if you have read some of the background on them, they are student and teachers. So Plato and Aristotle, they usually in the Greece. So they are the one who, uh, I mean, when we look back at the ancient time, so since people do not have the luxury or the technology that we have right now, so most of the activity that they have is basically revolving around observation of the nature itself. I mean that on their free time, they are going to look at the star, they are going to look at the nature, and they are going to contemplate on the nature of the world, on the nature of the man. And from this, they uh, uh, are able to some sort of, they are able to formulate some sort of early research paradigm. Uh, Plato and Aristotle also is one of the uh, main contributor or main influence, if you know the Alexander the Great. So Alexander the Great is one of the famous characters in history of world, right? So Alexander the Great, this teacher is so Aristotle. So based on the teaching of Aristotle and based on the belief on the teaching of Aristotle, so Alexander the Great has put forward the the effort to what we call to spread and to disseminate the knowledge that is generated from Greece. So when Alexander the Great conquer another land within the vicinity of Greece, so it is then during that time that the the paradigm or the thinking or the scientific thinking that is put forward by Plato and Aristotle is disseminated throughout the land of Europe during those time. So if you are interested in knowing more about this, you can read about the movement of Hellenistic. So Hellenistic movement. So Hellenistic movement is what actually being propagated by Alexander the Great. and those propagation of the idea of the superiority of the Greek knowledge, that is what has become the impetus or the spark to the uh, discussion on philosophy, and at the end of the day, the development of the research paradigm. So their idea, even though Plato and Aristotle is very ancient figure, but still their idea and their contribution is still widely regarded as one of the most important in Western civilization right now. If you even read the story about the Hellenistic movement, uh, Aristotle is someone who is held in very high regards by the Westerners, even to up to the point that their worldview, their Westerners' worldview, if their worldview or their finding is different from what Aristotle has said in their book, in his book, so the Westerners ego is going to uh, up to a certain point is going to change their finding about what they find, so that their finding is in line with Aristotle, because they find that Aristotle argument and philosophical foundation is very uh, is very good and is very interesting. So what you see right now is the movement that is branching from the discussion between Plato and Aristotle. So after the movement of the Hellenistic movement that is sparked by the Alexander the Great and the dissemination of the Greek knowledge. So things really started to picking up steam during the Renaissance and Enlightenment. So if you read about the history, so you will still remember about the Renaissance period and Enlightenment period. So during that time, that's when the scientific inquiry really took off. So when we look at the 19th century, so that's when this approach that is called positivism becomes super popular. So this is thanks to thinker like Auguste Comte and Emile Durkheim. So Auguste Comte and Emile Durkheim is the what we call the earliest scientists in sociology. So these scientists were all about applying scientific method to study society. They are looking for a universal law that govern how people behave, and using a lot of number and hypothesis testing. So they basically help establish social science as a proper discipline. Then here is the thing about this. In the 20th century, some researchers uh, uh, look at the positivism and start thinking that in their thinking, hey, look at this research paradigm. Maybe just looking at numbers, I think is not enough. So that's when interpretarism come along. So people like Max Weber and Alfred Schultz said that we need to understand what things mean to people and not just count them. So in positivism, people uh, usually tied to quantitative method, but in interpretism or constructivism, Max Weber uh, said that in order to understand things or in order to understand people, we cannot just count them. We just cannot use quantitative method. So since the development of the interpretivism and or constructivism, so those scientists, Max Weber and Alfred Schultz, so they push for things like ethnography and interview to really get the hearts of human behavior. And then, as we see in the later half of 20th century, so things got even more interesting with critical paradigm. So critical paradigm also some people call it as the transformative paradigm. So this paradigm is heavily influenced by thinker like Karl Marx. So if you remember, Karl Marx is the one who proposed the idea of socialism, or the idea of what we call communism, and Herbert Marcuse and Jürgen Habermas. So these scientists, these social scientists, they like uh, they said that we need to look at the power structure and inequality in society. So those people like Karl Marx, they wanted to uncover the hidden power dynamic that helps the marginalized group. So during that time, the idea of socialism and communism is very much a revolutionary idea. Then very recently, in social science, we see the rise of post-colonial and indigenous paradigm. And then in those colonial and decolonial paradigm, so they are more focused on the need to decolonize the knowledge and put indigenous perspective at the center. So those paradigm is very useful when you are studying about uh, the indigenous culture. So it's all about revitalizing cultural knowledge and supporting self-determination for indigenous community. And in the late 19th to early 20th century, so we have what we call another revolution, which is what we call as pragmatism. So pragmatism is uh, is the new paradigm that is originated from United States. So thinkers like Charles Sanders, William James, and John Dewey were the one behind this. So these scientists or these social scientists had a really practical approach. Unlike the positivism and constructivism, they said that there is no single absolute truth, but rather we should focus on what works in practice. So these scientists, they are big on mixing different research methods to get the best result. So this is where the mixed method start to gain the traction. So, however, even though I introduced some of the historical development, what you need to realize that none of this paradigm existed in isolation. So actually, positivism, constructivism, critical, and pragmatism, so they all influence each other, which means that they borrow the idea from one another, and over time, they evolve. So it's like this big conversation that's been going on over centuries. You can also think that researchers from different backgrounds have been sharing ideas and methods, which has led to some of the really innovative approach like mixed method research that is, popular in the current era. So I think this whole story is very important for researchers today because it helps us to understand where the idea come from. And this is going to give a better understanding on the tools that we have on our toolbox in order to do a proper research and having a roadmap that can show different paths that we could take in our research. So that is the importance of knowing the historical development of research paradigm. Okay. Now, since I said that the research paradigm is based on philosophical uh, revolution and philosophical thinking, so research paradigm has several characteristics or several unique tenet that is embedded within a philosophical discussion. So now we are going to look at several philosophical foundation of the research paradigm. So this philosophical foundation is very important because each of the paradigm has their own unique set of the way they look at things. So because of the unique way they are looking at certain thing, so their philosophical foundation also is very different. So now, okay, we are going to look at the first philosophical foundation, which is rooted in the epistemology. So epistemology. So if you uh, have done some kind of cursory reading or cursory research on philosophical, so you might as well have heard or encountered the word of epistemology. So, however, epistemology, I mean, it is a when we first encounter the word epistemology, it is it's like a very big word. It's like a very mysterious word, right? But essentially, when we talk about epistemology, we essentially exploring how we know what we know. So that is epistemology is all about. It is about the nature of knowledge, how we know what we know. So that is epistemology. So it is a branch of philosophical field. So we are talking about the nature of knowledge itself. It's like the DNA of the research. So therefore, epistemology shape everything from how we approach our study to how we validate our finding. You can think about it about this in different way. So different research paradigm, it's like different lenses through which we view knowledge. Okay, so research is about we know that there are basic research and applied research. So in basic research, we know that we are generating a new knowledge. Okay, so by adorning or by wearing different lenses, so we are going to view knowledge in different light. So first, we are going to look at the positivist approach. So if you're coming from a scientific or quantitative background, you'll feel very comfortable with this concept of epistemology. So positivists are all about hard evidence. I mean, they believe that if you can measure it, then it is not a valid knowledge. So I mean, people who uh, adopt positivism as their research paradigm is going to say that show me the numbers, show me the numbers. So this means that they love their quantitative method and uh, about the replicability of the result. So when you are adapting or adopting the positivist mindset, it's like you are following a recipe. If you follow the same step, you should get the same result. So this is what you have learned in the scientific methodology. We have several steps that we need to follow, and if you follow by theory, if you follow all of the steps that has been aligned, has been put forward, you should get the same result each time. So that is what positivism view. Now, if you flip the coin and you are going to get the interpretivist or the constructivism. So this researcher have a completely different take on the epistemology, on the nature of the knowledge. So it's like they believe that the human experience is very complex. So because human experience is very complex, you can just reduce the experience of the human to just a numbers. So interpretivism or constructivism believe that the nature of knowledge is not based on numbers. So they believe that knowledge is like uh, it's like collection. It's like a collection of people experience, people belief, and social context. So if you are doing qualitative research, you should know interview, observation, really getting into the thick of human experience. So you probably working within this paradigm of interpretivism or constructivism. And finally, let's talk about the pragmatism. So unlike the other two, the positivism and interpretivism, so pragmatism, they are like the practical problem solver of the research world. In this uh, worldview, the epistemological perspective is about flexibility and practicality. So, I mean, it's like they are saying, we just use whatever works. We are going to use whatever we can in order to know what is the nature of the knowledge. So, the pragmatism or pragmatist is usually combining quantitative and qualitative method to get the best answer for any problem. So this pragmatism, the people who adorn the pragmatism paradigm, so they are all about finding practical solution to the real world problem. So based on the explanation of these three philosophical epistemological foundation, I want you to understand that this different epistemological perspective isn't just an academic exercise. It isn't just a theory. So it is going to, I mean, if you really believe in it and if you really adopt this view in your research, it is going to fundamentally shape how you design your research, how you are going to choose your method, and how you are going to interpret your finding. So when you are working on your postgraduate research, so being clear about your epistemological stance is like what we call, it's like having a compass. It will help you navigate all the important decisions that you need to make in your research journey. Also, you need to remember, even though you see three different paradigm or even five, or there is no right and wrong paradigm here. So the important thing is that it is about choosing the approach that best align with your research question and your understanding of how knowledge is created and validated. So as postgraduate researcher, as postgraduate student, you not just a consumer of knowledge. So you are the producer of the knowledge itself. And that's both a privilege and responsibility. So therefore, when you going to design your research, when you are going to design your proposal, your thesis, you need to think about the epistemological assumption underlying the work. So I think it's when you really get the gist of what this philosophical foundation is all about, you are going to have a deeper appreciation of the research process, and it will help you to make more informed choice in your own research journey in the future, not just right now when you are postgraduate student. Okay, enough about epistemology. So the next philosophical foundation that govern the research paradigm is about ontology. So ontology, um, uh, uh, we can think of ontology is about the philosophical study of the nature of reality and existence. So it is the study of the nature of reality and existence. So it is about understanding the fundamental question about the nature of social phenomena, the nature of entities, and the relationship between researcher and what they are studying. So just like the epistemology, so different research paradigm have different ontological assumption. And this assumption that you see on the slide can have a big impact on how researchers create their knowledge. So as you can see, ontological perspective can range from realism, which say that there is an objective reality out there that exists independently of human perception. So that is reality. That is how you view yourself on positivism. Uh, But if you look at the interpretive or the constructivism, the ontological of social and constructivism, they see that reality as something that is created through social and cultural process. And in positivism, which have pluralistic ontology, so the researcher is trying to uncover objective truths about social world. You can think also they might use method that focus on external validity and generalizability to do this. Okay. In our constructivism paradigm also with the social constructive ontology, the researcher is more interested in understanding the different perspective and meaning that individual bring to the table. So in this sense, so the researcher might use qualitative method to capture the subjective nature of reality. In the transformative paradigm, the researcher might recognize that reality is shaped by social, political, culture, economic, and gender value. So different paradigm is going to have different perception of what constitutes a reality. So this is very important when you are choosing your research paradigm, because the reality is going to be different based on the paradigm that you are going to choose. So if you look at the pragmatism once again, so this paradigm will allow the researcher to bring together different ontological stance to solve the real world problem. For example, if you think about it, a pragmatist researcher might study, for example, they might study urban transportation issue. So they might study the issue by combining objective data on traffic pattern with subjective experience of commuter. So as you can see here, understanding ontology in research paradigm is very important for research. So it is going to allow you to what we call critically reflect on the assumption about the nature of reality and social phenomena. And this is going to help you to navigate the complexity of knowledge creation by aligning. You need to align your ontological stance with the research question and method. So if you really think about it, so by recognizing the ontological underpinning of the research, researcher can make informed choices that are consistent with their philosophical, theoretical perspective. So in turn, when you have your philosophical and theoretical perspective, it can turn to a more robust and meaningful research. Okay. Okay. So since the philosophical discussion about epistemology, ontology, so this is a very, I mean, I know that this is a very, what we call, this is a very alien concept, especially to those who never really have a deeper understanding or deeper reading on this matter. So after hearing the both epistemology and ontology, you may wonder how these two concepts related to each other. So, so you can imagine that you are setting out on a research journey. So ontology is like the map that show you the terrain or the surrounding that you have. So it's about the nature of reality. So what exists and what we can know about that based on the map that we have. So, however, epistemology, on the other hand, is what we can think about it as a compass. So, when you have a compass, it can guide you in deciding which direction to take. I mean, how to navigate the landscape and what tools you are going to use to discover the knowledge along the way. So, in other words, you can think that ontology is concerned with the question, what is reality? So while epistemology is asking, how do we know what we know? So that is different. So one hand, ontology is about what is reality, and epistemology is about how do we know what we know. So that is the difference. So in this sense, ontology explores the fundamental nature of being and existence, while epistemology investigate the method, validity, and the scope of human knowledge. So let's consider an example. Um, so for example, say that you are researching the impact of social media on the adolescent mental health. So your ontological stance might be that social media and mental health are a real phenomena. So meaning that you really believe that social media and mental health are real phenomena that exist independently of our perception. So you can think of it as a realist ontology. So it is a realism which is connected to positivism. So alternatively, you might believe that the concept of social media and mental health are socially constructed. So there is no separate reality that exists in the world. So they are just a concept. So if you believe that social media and mental health are just a concept which is socially constructed, and this indicate that their meaning can vary across individual and culture. So this is based on the interpretivism or constructivism, based on the social constructivism ontology. So, however, your epistemological stance, however, would dictate how you are going about in studying these phenomena. So, for example, if you adopt a positivist epistemology, you might design a quantitative study, mean that you collect data through survey, use statistical analysis to uncover generalizable truth. But if you lean toward interpretivist epistemology, you might uh, choose a qualitative method like interview, focus group, which is used to understand the subjective experience and meaning that adolescents ascribe or assign to social media and mental health. So in essence, you can think that ontology provide the foundation for your research by defining the nature of the phenomena that you are studying, while epistemology guide your approach to studying those phenomena and generating knowledge about them. Uh, it is very important to note that ontology and epistemology are closely intertwined. Your ontological assumption about the nature of reality will inevitably shape your epistemological choice. Uh, I mean, it will shape your epistemology about how to investigate those reality. So at the same time, your epistemological stance will also limit your ontological claim because you can only make the ontological claim based on your research finding. So as a researcher, as a student of postgraduate, it is very essential that uh, we critically reflect on our ontological and epistemological assumption that we hold on actually. So by understanding how this assumption shape our research question, method, and interpretation, so we can make more informed, transparent choice in our research practice. So when we also have a self-awareness about this epistemology and ontological perspective, so we are going also able to engage in very meaningful dialogue with other researchers from uh, a different paradigm. So in this way, we are going to be able to appreciate the diverse way in which knowledge can be constructed and understood. So next time, when you embark on your research project, you need to take some time or some moment to consider your ontological and epistemological compass. So doing so, I think will not only enrich your research journey, but also contribute to more what we call reflexive as well as rigorous scholarly community, since you already know uh, what paradigm is all about. Okay, so next is the last philosophical foundation is about axiology. Okay, just like epistemology and ontology, this is also a term that I think that some of you may never heard before. But however, simply put, axiology is all about how value and ethic play into our research. So it is about how value and ethic play into our research. So it is about value and ethic, axiology. Okay, if you look at the slide, you can see that there are difference of key axiological principle and the corresponding value and ethic. So as you can see, positivist, interpretivist or constructivism and pragmatists have different key assumption on axiological principle, and which in turn is going to guide their value and ethic. So when we as a researcher and when you as a student that are going to conduct your research, um, you see, when we conduct the research, we as a human, whether we like it or not, we have our own set of belief and value. Everybody has it. We have our own value and belief based on our upbringing, based on our surrounding, based on our reading, and based on a variety of things. Okay, so we have been influenced on several multiple values and belief in throughout our life. So because we have our own value and our own belief, those value and belief can introduce bias into the process of research. So that's exactly what axiology helps us to understand. Okay, so so according to the people who have been doing this research on axiology, you can think of axiology as the question about the value, neutrality, and the moral side of the research. Okay, the important point is that when you are doing research, research is never completely value free. Even though, for example, the positivists. So, for example, the positivists assume that there is a value free research. However, whether we like it or not, it is not completely value free in our endeavor or pursuit of the research itself. So take a moment when you design your research. So when you interact with the participant or you analyze your data, so you're making a decision based on certain value. Okay. So this might include like things like transparency, fairness, respect for human dignity, privacy, and getting proper informed consent. So when you look at this thing, these aren't just boxes to tick. I mean, they are fundamental principles that shape the entire research process. So when we look at, for example, on the first positivist. So when the positivists adopt their paradigm, so those researchers who adopt positivists, are going to strive, are going to go to a great length to have a complete objectivity. So those researchers are going to try to keep their personal bias out of the picture when they adopt the positivist paradigm. So it is in essence what we call, they are trying to maintain what we call a distance from their research subject. So you can think of positivist axiology as like being a completely neutral observer. Um, But when we look at the interpretivism or the constructivism, it is going to take a completely different stance. So this researcher who adopt this approach is actually is going to embrace the subjectivity. So they are going to acknowledge that their own value and actively reflect on how their value that they have is going to influence their research. So it's like they are saying that, yes, I have my own perspective and I need to understand how my perspective are going to affect my work. And uh, after that, on the pragmatism, so on pragmatism, the researcher who adopt those paradigm is going to focus on practical outcome and problem solving. So the people who adopt pragmatism is going to be less concerned with rigid philosophical position, and they are more interested, I think, in what actually works. So for example, if you are going to study, for example, environmental conservation, so a pragmatist researcher is going to, they are going to use variety of uh, they are going to use whatever they have in their mean to combine research measurement. So they are going to use whatever they have in order to combine the measurement of the scientific measurement in order to understand the pollution with the community interview about the local attitude. So basically they are looking at the effective and practical solution, even if the pragmatist uh, methodology, it means that they are crossing the traditional boundaries between research method. So it is very important to know that understanding axiology is crucial for your development as a research. So understanding the value that is adopted by each of the paradigm, it's going to help you to make better ethical decision throughout the research process. I mean, it's going to encourage you to think critically about your own value and bias and how these are going to impact your work. Okay. Okay, now we are going to look at the major research paradigm in social science. Okay. So we have talked about the historical development, the philosophical foundation that govern each of the major research paradigm in social science. So also from the epistemological, from the ontological, and from the axiological perspective. So now we are going to look at the characteristic and principle of the major research paradigm in social science. So the first is the positivism. So the first characteristic, as you can see on the slide, is about the objective reality. The objective reality. So when you adopt positivism as your research paradigm, objective reality is going to become the cornerstone of your study. So you can think that objective reality as the cornerstone of the positivism itself. So the key idea here is that there's only one true reality. So based on positivism, there is only one true reality out there that exists independent of what we think or believe. So you can think of it as like saying that customer satisfaction in hotel isn't just what we think it is. So based on positivism, it is something that actually that can be observed, measured, and understood through careful scientific investigation. Um, just like I mentioned about the gravity. So we know that gravity exists, whether we believe it, whether we believe in it or not. So in this similar token, so positivists believe that social phenomena have an objective truth. So it is going to be there. The objective truth is going to be there, even if there's nobody looking for it. Okay. Then scientific method. So positivism is when we talk about scientific method in light of positivism, we essentially following a structured path to knowledge. So you start with a theory, develop hypothesis, collect data, and after that, you are going to test this hypothesis. So for instance, for example, if you are researching the impact of service quality on customer loyalty in restaurant, so you would develop a specific hypothesis based on existing theory. Then after that, you are going to collect data through survey or observation. And after that, you are going to use statistical analysis to test your prediction. So in this sense, adopting positivism is all about being systematic and rigorous in your approach. Also, as I mentioned before, positivism, as best as they can, are going to distance themselves from their value that they hold. So in essence, that positivism emphasis value-free research. So this is particularly interesting for postgraduate researcher because positivism maintain that research should be conducted without letting our personal value or belief or biases that we have on the world influence the result. So whatever belief, whatever value, whatever bias that we have in our life, so when we adopt positivism, that value or that belief should not influence the result itself. So even though we acknowledge that this is very challenging, I know that because we have our own belief, our own value. So since we are adopting positivism, we cannot let those value affect the result or the interpretation of the result itself. So the goal is to approach our result as neutral observer. You can think of it as being a judge in a court. So you just need to look at the evidence objectively, regardless of your personal feeling about the case. So even though we think, for example, in the court, even though we think that the criminal is uh, is uh, is guilty, but because of the evidence showing that he is not guilty, then we need to put aside our objective. We need to put aside our value or our belief, and just stay with the what evidence show. So if he is not found guilty, then he is innocent. Then adopting positivism also mean that it is much more connected with cause and effect. So meaning there is a causality in the research that adopting the positivism. So usually positivism is all about understanding cause and effect relationship. So especially in hospitality research, we are often trying to identify what caused certain outcome or what is associated, what is correlating with another IV to another DV. So for example, we can say that what specific factor cause increased guest satisfaction, what lead to higher booking rates. So these aren't just correlation that we are looking for. So we want to establish a clear causal relationship that can help us to predict and control outcome. Then, lastly, we have quantification. In quantification, so this principle of quantification is crucial for your research method. So if you adopt positivism, it actually emphasizes that if something exists, it can be measured. So when we talk about, for example, guest satisfaction, we talk about service quality, employee performance. So those who adopt the positivism will believe that this concept can be broken down into measurable variable. Or if you learn in research methodology, this is what we call as operationalization. of variable. So in this sense, we are going to turn the observation into numbers that we can analyze statistically. You can think of it it's like we have an abstract concept such as the social phenomena that we are going to translate into data that we can work with scientifically. So that is the major characteristic of positivism. Okay, so this is some of the research question, some of the example of research question that is associated with positivism. So if you adopt positivism, this is the research question that is generally in line or aligned with the positivism paradigm. So as you can see here, we have within customer behavior, operation management, and marketing. So basically, as you can see here, for example, in customer behavior, for example, what factors influence guest satisfaction in luxury hotel? So how does price sensitivity affect tourist destination? What is the relationship between service quality and customer loyalty in restaurant? So if you really look at this research question, so this research question is based on the variable that can be measured, that can be operationalized into things that we can measure on their outward appearance. So this is what basically positivism is doing. So they are measuring, they are broken, they are broken, they are breaking the abstract concept into measurable characteristic that can be measured by questionnaire usually. So this is how you formulated your research question if you are adopting the positivism paradigm. Okay, next we have interpretivism or constructivism. So unlike the, so you can think of interpretivism or constructivism as the opposite of the positivism. So so in interpretivism or constructivism, the people or the researcher who adopt this paradigm is going to believe that reality is not fixed or single like the positivists suggest. So instead, the researcher who adopt the interpretivism is going to think or is going to believe that reality is socially constructed. So meaning that it is the reality or the social reality is shaped by our own personal experience. So it means that our value, our belief is going to have uh, some relationship with how we are going to interpret the finding that we have when we are adopting the interpretivism. So meaning that our cultural background, our individual interpretation is going to influence how we view the reality itself. For example, when two guests stay at the same luxury hotel, for example, so they might have completely different interpretation of what makes the experience that they experience is luxurious based on their personal background and expectation. So if you look, for example, one customer of the hotel might value physical amenities, while another guest might focus on personalized service interaction. So one view that physical amenities as what constitute as luxurious, while another one view that personalized service interaction as what constitute as luxurious. Um, So the second is the multiple perspective. So, so this principle is particularly fascinating because it acknowledges that there isn't one truth out there waiting to be discovered. I mean, unlike the stances or the belief that is adopted by positivists, so the people who adopt constructivism or interpretivism acknowledge that there is no one truth that can be found in the nature. So instead, the people who believe in interpretivism, they are going to embrace the idea that multiple valid perspectives can exist simultaneously. You can think about, I mean, for example, tourism development project in a heritage area. The local resident, tourist, business owner, and so even us as researcher, we all might all have different yet equally valid perspective on what constitute appropriate tourism development, for example. So as researcher, we are more interested in understanding and giving voice to all these different viewpoints rather than trying to determine which one view is the correct. So therefore, this paradigm is context-dependent knowledge. So the people who adopt this paradigm is going to believe that knowledge and meaning are deeply rooted in context. So this means that what we learn or observe in one situation cannot be necessarily generalized to all similar situations. Um, for instance, if you think the way that guests interpret service quality, for example, in ryokan in Japan might be completely different from how they interpret it in boutique hotel in Paris. So the cultural context, the historical background, the social norm, so all of those things play a vital role in shaping how people make sense of their experience. So this is why we pay so much attention to describing and understanding the specific context of our research setting. Okay. Then this is the research question example. If you adopt the interpretivism or constructivism paradigm in your research. So as you can see here, it is totally different from the positivism research question. So for example here, in guest experience, we ask the question, how do cultural background influence guest interpretation of luxury service in five-star hotel? So if you look at the research question, it is more open-ended. It cannot be answered by just simply giving a questionnaire and getting their response based on Likert scale. So what meaning do solo female traveler attach to their boutique hotel experience? And in hotel host tourist interaction, how do local residents make sense of tourism development in their historic neighborhood? So as you can see here, all of this is very different from the positivist research question. And simultaneously or consequently, the research method that you are going to adopt for this research paradigm also is going to be totally different. So if you are adopting for positivism and its research question, so most of the research analysis is going to be based on research quantitative analysis, correlation, regression, even structural equation modeling. But if you are adopting interpretivism or constructivism, as you can see here, the research question is more open-ended, meaning that the tools or the research methodology is going to adopt tools like interview, observation, maybe method like ethnographic, grounded theory. So all of these things. So these are the different from them. And lastly, the major research paradigm that I'm going to cover is the pragmatism. So you can think of pragmatism is it's like a combination between positivism and interpretivism. So the best of both worlds. So in this paradigm, in pragmatism paradigm, so the first thing that the pragmatists look at it is a problem-centered approach. So it means that the heart of pragmatism, if you look at it, is the focus is on solving the real world problem. So unlike other research paradigm that might get caught up in philosophical debate about the nature of reality or truth, you can think of pragmatists are primarily concerned with finding practical solution to actual challenges that you find in the industry or in the real world, situation. Uh, for example, if you are researching a hotel sustainability practice, so people who adopt pragmatism wouldn't just theorize about environmental factor or environmental impact that they have on the hotel sustainability practice, but also they are going to focus on finding implementable solution that work within the hotel operation constraint and budget. So you can think of the pragmatism is about what solution work, what method can be done. So rather than asking what is the absolute truth, so they are just focusing on the methods that is really apparent in arriving at the solution. Um, it is also where the mixed methodology come into light when the pragmatism is created. So if you are adopting pragmatism as your research paradigm, so it is going to give you the freedom to use whatever research method that will best answer your question. So in this sense, you are not locked into either quantitative or qualitative approach. So instead, you can combine method like uh, based on your research, based on the nature of your research question. So you are going to combine method like survey, interview, financial analysis, and observation, if that's what it takes to fully understand and solve the problem. For instance, for example, if you are studying guest experience in luxury hotel, so you might use survey to capture the broad pattern. So the broad pattern, the general pattern that you see in the behavior and the attitude of the guest experience. Then you can use interview to understand the deeper motivation, and you can also use financial data to assess the business impact. So in this sense, pragmatism is about choosing the right tools for the job. So regardless their philosophical underpinning. So whatever works can be used in order to solve the real world problem based on pragmatism. So, so in this sense, you can think that pragmatism is a paradigm that use multiple perspective and integrate those multiple perspective. So So pragmatism recognizes that there are multiple ways of interpreting and understanding reality. But the people who adopt pragmatism usually they focus on the perspective that are most useful for addressing the research problem. So I think that this is especially valuable in research concerning hospitality and tourism, where you often need to balance different stakeholder view. For example, we have guests, we have employees, manager, owner, and community member. So therefore, rather than trying to determine which perspective is the right perspective, while I mean, if you choose certain perspective over the others, then you are going to run the risk of choosing the less important perspective. So therefore, pragmatist is going to ask which combination of viewpoint is going to help them to understand and better solve the problem at their hand. Uh, so, for example, when we look at the tourism development impact study, for example, so based on pragmatism and using multiple perspective integration, so you might want to integrate, for example, economic data, resident opinion, tourist feedback, and environmental assessment to really develop a comprehensible, workable solution. So based on pragmatism worldview or pragmatism paradigm, so you are going to use whatever you have and whatever you can reach within your mean in order to solve those problems, regardless whether it is combining different data or different uh, approach. As long as it is work, so pragmatist is going to use those tools in order to solve their problem. So this is some of the research question example. So if you can see, if you see here, the research question is also like in the constructivism, but rather than, even though it is open-ended research question, meaning that it need to have a deeper understanding, deeper answer. But the research question usually in pragmatism is all about understanding a very specific problem. For example, here in service innovation, how can hotels effectively implement sustainable practice while maintaining guest satisfaction? So as you can see here, they are trying to find a way to effectively implement sustainable practice. And in this operational efficiency, so as you can see, what strategies most effectively reduce food waste in restaurant operation? So right now they are trying to find what is the most effective strategy that can be used to reduce the food waste. So based on this pragmatism paradigm, so they are going to use whatever method that is suitable in order to really answer their research question. So in this manner, based on this understanding, so there is no one research methodology or research design is going to be the same, because within pragmatism, each problem require different solution, and each problem require different tools to be used in order to solve those problems. So that's about it for this overview of research paradigm in social science, in hospitality. So I hope that I know this is the overview or the discussion on the research paradigm is not something that is deeply discussed in various occasions. However, I hope that this brief introduction or this brief overview is going to give you some kind of understanding on the importance on what the research paradigm is all about. So it means, what does choosing positivism, what does choosing interpretivism, constructivism, what does choosing pragmatism mean to your research? So it's not just about just writing in your research methodology, so I choose positivism, without really understanding the implication of your choice on the whole of the construction of your proposal, and more importantly, on your final research thesis. So I hope may the knowledge benefit your life dearly. and I hope this knowledge can be used in order to fully appreciate it, what different perspective give you in your journey of the research journey. Okay, with that, I pass back the session to the Master of Ceremony, Puan Suryati Osman.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Muhammad Noor Azmin, for a very grateful and insightful sharing session. So I think everybody has to agree here that this is a very insightful and short but understandable. Okay, so I personally learned a lot from this session. Actually, first time I learned about the terms anxiology. Okay, so ontology and also epistemology. I read about it before, but anxiology is the thing that the the new terms that I learned today. So it's very interesting. So it is now for Q&A time. So question so I encourage all the participants who have questions to write it down in the chat box, or you may raise your hand virtually, so I will call you by name. So any question from the virtual participants? Okay, Puan Zubaida.
Thank you, MC. Good afternoon, Dr. Noor Azmin. I have a question. Um, when we going to discuss about the in chapter 3 research paradigm used in our research, so when we want to determine which paradigm being used, do we finalize, we must finalize just a confirmation, do we, so basically we have to finalize the research objective or the what we call the research, the methods, either quali, quanti, or is it as simple as that? I'm going to use quali, automatically it's considered as interpretism. Is it something like that?
Okay, thank you to the participant who asked the question. So the how to determine, like how to determine which paradigm is the most suitable. So actually it is based on the nature of your study. Okay, the based on the nature of your study, whether you are studying, also based on your belief that you are trying to put forward in your in your life. So for example, um, if your study, if you believe that your study, or if you believe that, I mean, if I mean the paradigm that I just show is actually what we call a lived experience, meaning that uh, 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 the paradigm is not something that uh, uh, you choose because you are conducting certain research, certain team. I mean, it is true that based on certain research objective and based on certain research methodology, so the most suitable research paradigm is going to be something and something. But however, the scientists that develop this paradigm, uh, as you can see that from Plato, from Aristotle, then Emil Durkheim, and up until right now. So those paradigm has their own, macam apa, dalam mazhab kita dia ada dia punya apa, ulama dia kan. Ada ulama dia. So setiap ulama tu dia memainkan peranan penting untuk develop. So mazhab ni dia ada pandangan dia, mazhab ni ada pandangan dia, mazhab ni ada pandangan dia. So based on our belief, so if we believe that, for example, if we adopt in our life, we believe that, for example, we believe on the constructivism only, meaning that the reality, there is no single reality, there is no single objective reality. So if you believe that, then your research is going to be conducted within those lens. So that's why most of the time the researcher that develop the for example the constructivism, so their research mostly is based on social phenomena. So because they truly believe that, they don't believe on positivism. They don't believe on positivism as much as they believe on constructivism. So that's why if they believe that there is no single reality out there, all of the reality is only socially constructed, so then they are going to adopt then it is automatically the research method is going to align with their belief. So that's why they are going to put forward the research objective, the research question that is in align with their belief of the reality of the world. So that's why it is not only just for the sake of kita tulis je lah kat chapter 3 kan. It is actually because I mean we as a Muslim, we have our own worldview, Islamic worldview, but the Western scientists, when we talk about the paradigm, that's why it is attached with, or it is embedded with philosophical foundation, epistemology, ontology, and axiology, because that is how we make sense of our life. So because that is how they view their life. So they view that there is no reality outside independent of ourselves, so they choose the constructivism. So but if they really believe that you can really truly achieve a truth, objective truth, there is a truth out there independent of ourselves, so then they are going to choose the positivism. So that is the answer, the actual answer. I mean, it is based on your belief, but I know that based on the research, that is the ideal answer lah. But in reality, we just choose whatever we want to choose. So that is how actually, because the research paradigm is actually the reality that they believe in. So that's why they argue my method is is an update of the so even this is what I presented right now is just what we call the classical. So even right now we have a positivism. So but right now we already have what we call as post-positivism. Post-positivism, we have critical theory. So for example, positivism. So post-positivism view that there is no absolute truth. There is truth. There is truth. There is a truth, but the truth is relative. You cannot get to the truth, absolute truth by itself. You can only get so far, according to post-positivism. So if you believe in post-positivism, so the finding itself is going to be different. You are not going to be 100% certain with the phenomena that you observe, because you know that you are only going to get so far with post-positivism. Macam postmodern. So right now we are in postmodern era where there is not an absolute truth right now in the view. So that's why the value has been, everybody has their own truth. My truth is the truth for myself, and there is no absolute truth. So macam kita cakap pasal LGBT kan. So everybody can claim I am woman, I am man. So because there is no absolute truth in this postmodern reality. So that is the answer lah, in actuality. So the paradigm is what they truly believe in the reality of the world.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Azmin. Okay, anybody? Do you have any question? Okay, no question. So there is two reason for not having any question. Either they are fully understand, or okay, maybe just they don't have any idea what to ask. Okay, so I believe okay that's the of if you don't have any question, then I will end this session. Okay, so before we end our session, sorry, before we end our session, okay, I'd like to extend our sincere gratitude to Dr. Muhammad Noor Azmin Akbarruddin for sharing his expertise and lending his precious time to with us today. Okay, so and to all participants, okay, the link for um training session, okay, the attendance has been posted in the chat box. Okay, you may click the Google form, and the slides and also the recording session for today's webinar will be posted in the WhatsApp group. Okay, so with that, I officially end today's webinar and hope to have a wonderful day. Okay, and have a good weekend. Thank you very much and see you in the next webinar. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Thank you, Dr.
you.
Azmin.
Yeah.